Preview of talent. Good morning, Center for Spiritual Living, Delaware. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Our theme for the month is empowerment. I protect the vulnerable. Let us listen deeply to these inspired words on this topic. The Dalai Lama writes, I believe that to meet the challenge of our times, human beings will have to develop a greater sense of universal responsibility. We must all learn to work not just for our own self, family, or nation, but for the benefit of all humankind. Universal responsibility is the key to human survival. It is the best foundation for world peace. The equitable use of natural resources, and through concern for future generations, the proper care of the environment. Andrew Harvey writes, when my friends and pupils who want to help me ask what they should do, I always say the same thing: follow your heartbreak. Determine which one of all the causes in the world really breaks your heart. When you identify this, you have found the cause you will always have the energy and passion to work for. Let us use the creative power of our word together as we read our affirmation. Excuse me. I see the planetary issues as a call for love in the form of prayer and action. Together in wisdom, we join hands, hearts, and minds to co-create a more kind, loving, and abundant life for all. And so it is.
That was beautiful, Marcy. Thank you so much. So the topic today is from heartbreak to wholehearted action. From heartbreak to wholehearted action. And I'm going to start with a story that I'm sure is familiar to many of you. I brought it up briefly last week, but let's take a look at it a little bit more deeply and look for the underlying message. So when Jesus was teaching the commandment to love God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, and love your neighbor as yourself, one of the disciples or one of those who were present said, well, who is my neighbor? Who is my neighbor? And so he told this parable, and if you remember, parables are told at different levels. They're told at the level of just a story, or the level of the moral that's in it, and there's an even deeper level that is the metaphysical meaning, that deeper meaning of what it means for us personally on an inner level in order to be a more full expression of who we are. And so as I read it, I'd like you to think of it in those terms, that there are many levels that this story can be viewed. So let's just go to the beginning, where there was a man who was traveling along the road, and he was suddenly attacked and robbed and beaten and left by the side of the road to die. And the story is that there were several people that came by, saw him, and continued walking, but didn't do anything to help him. And then suddenly this man, the Samaritan, that we know now as the Good Samaritan, felt compassion. He saw the man's suffering and he felt compassion. And then he took the action that was necessary to ensure the well-being of this man. He bound his wounds, he put him on his donkey or burro, whatever he had, the animal that he had with him, the pack animal, took him to the closest inn and tended to him for a little bit longer and then paid extra money to the innkeeper to continue his care until he was fully recovered. This is a story on the surface level of the importance of caring for our brothers and sisters across the planet, and being that presence of action and love. And on the deeper level, it has to do with something that we cultivate within ourselves that is the consciousness that gives birth to this kind of action, so that we don't have to, so we actually just live from that. We don't have to really think about it too much. It's just natural to who we are. That consciousness is what? It's the consciousness of oneness. It's the realization that we are all interconnected. There's no separation. We're all interdependent. Everyone, no matter who they are, or where they are on the planet, or what political party they belong to, or whatever it is, everyone is our brother and our sister. We have some seats right up front here, Isaac, and it's a good place for you guys to be today, because you're the stars, right? So come on forward. And so this story is about interconnection. It's about realizing that when we gaze into the eyes of another person, we are looking into the eyes of the one presence, the one life, the one power. Right there, under the surface of that human disguise, is the presence of God. So the deeper level, this is where I'd like you all to come from today, as we take a look at the bigger things that are going on the planet. You know, Marcy set you up so beautifully with these two readings that we're talking about heartbreak, following your heartbreak, a very different thing than following your bliss. And I'm going to get into that a little bit later, but it's what's being called for from all of us because of the state of what things are on the planet. I mean, this was truly the call all along, but even more so now because the state of our planet, of humanity, of all the plants and the animals, is at stake. All you need to do is just read about it, and you know, if you do any traveling, like I did to India at one point in time, or China, you can see the incredible amount of pollution that's being put into the atmosphere, into the oceans, into the waterways, onto the land by humanity. So the Dalai Lama, I love the Dalai Lama. He calls this universal responsibility. So this isn't just compassion for the person who's right in front of us. This is about universal responsibility that and you know, the thing is we are big enough. We're all made in the likeness and image of God. The kingdom of heaven is within. We are all big enough, and we all play a vital, vibrant part in the fabric of life. We each are that perfect thread for whatever we are being called for. And all of us, because we are divine beings, have a calling. And today we're talking about, rather than follow your bliss, we're talking about follow your heartbreak. Wow, that's a really big difference on where it is that we are to serve. So our center is really rooted and grounded in this. You know, every Sunday we say that we are here to be the presence of love and co-create heaven on earth. And the overall Centers for Spiritual Living adds to that, a world that works for everyone. It's all of it. It's that idea of universal inclusiveness and responsibility. So some of the things, you know, we practice visioning in this community. We listen deeply and we ask, what is ours to do? Where are we to place our energy, our passion, our attention, our compassion, and our love? Where are we to direct it? And so out of that has been birthed a food pantry that's in this other room. There's a food pantry there. Out of it that's been birthed is that we continue to support Friendship House, an organization that's downtown Wilmington, has a couple locations that not only shelters the most vulnerable, gives them food and clothing and so on, it also teaches them life skills. And this month we're talking about empowerment, not only protecting the vulnerable, but empowerment, helping people learn how to fish in their lives. And we also are taking steps in this community to reduce the amount of plastic we use. We want to get it to the point where it's negligible, but we're going in stages because we still have some plasticware left over, which we're going to recycle properly. The thing is, though, is we're doing things with a mindfulness and an intention. We've been recycling for a long time. We're now purchasing recycled paper products, and we purchased some silverware to use that more often so that we can reduce our carbon footprint. We're really intending as a community to awaken to what is ours to do, how we are to show up as this presence of love and compassion. What does that really mean for each one of us? And our spiritual teaching, one of the things I've loved from it from the very moment that I was exposed to it, is that it exposes the trance of separation that humanity's gotten caught up with. The Toltecs call it the Maya. It's a trance of separation and duality, that somehow we're separate from each other, that somehow we're separate from our planet. And that kind of thinking leads to a lot of struggle and strife and suffering. It's the root of the habits of living, where we create massive amounts of disposable things that can't break down biologically, and are caught up in our oceans and our streams and our waterways, bringing harm to marine life. And ultimately, because we're all interconnected, it affects us. And somehow there's a disconnect in much of humanity of how all that works. And so there's a mindlessness going on because of this, what I call a trance of duality, a trance of separation. But we are not being fooled, are we, by this idea that we're separate? We understand. I know we do. We understand the interconnectedness of all life. We understand the interdependence of all life, that everything is truly one. One of our songs is We're All in This Together, and a song that we're going to be singing today. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. It's in our culture here. This is in our culture. Not only here, it's in all of the New Thought centers for spiritual living communities all over the planet, and there are many of us. You know, we look at our community and the size, and sometimes we think, wow, is anybody out there, with us? And there are, and I know there are other communities and organizations who are also on the same page. So again, this trance of separation, what does it lead to? It also leads to a gridlock in our politics, a lot of energy spent in conflict that could be used in creative solution. And we're the ones who can vote in the people who have this higher perspective, of our oneness and of how we have to work with everyone. One of the things I love about the book that I've been referring to this month, which is Terry Patton's book, A New Republic of the Heart. He comes from an integral perspective. He's a student of Ken Wilber. Anybody familiar with Ken Wilber's work? Yeah. And he said that this consciousness of the integral consciousness is it's not about it's my way or the highway. It's how can we all get together, no matter what our perspectives are, and come up with solution. It's about dialogue. It's about listening deeply to one another. It's about working together for solution. So you may be asking yourself at this moment, where do I start to make a difference? How do I best engage with what's going on around me? So Andrew Harvey says, follow your heartbreak. And I'm going to actually add to that because Terry Patton actually expanded on that. Terry Patton said, follow your heartbreak and your genius with your friends. Don't you love that? Follow your heartbreak and your genius with your friends. Find others. If you follow your heartbreak, you will find others who are on the same page and who are willing to work with you. This is a time in which we work as community. The new Buddha and the new Christ is community. We actually have something around the edge of our handprint tree back there that says that from a Buddhist perspective, but it's true from a Christian perspective and from all other perspectives. This new realized beingness is taking place in community where we support each other and where we wake up to who we are in truth and work on projects together to make a difference. This is a republic of the heart that he's talking about. So again, when we follow our heartbreak, what is it that breaks my heart? And I really want to make a difference there. It's about moving beyond the follow your bliss consciousness, which is focused on ourselves and indifferent to what's going on around us, and instead stepping into this higher level of beingness that we all have available to us. This is what the Christ consciousness, the Buddha consciousness, the Krishna consciousness, whatever religion you're part of, stands for, is this expansive perspective of realizing that we are one and addressing where the heartbreak is and bringing our love and compassion there. I mean, that's the Samaritan energy. It's bringing our love and compassion to wherever we see suffering and making a difference. And here's the thing about genius that I really want to get clear with all of us. Because often we think genius, we think of somebody who, I don't know what you think of genius, an amazing, outstanding artist, somebody who has an incredible gift for writing music or, whatever it might be. And here's the thing. We all have our own genius, and this is what genius looks like. It's our particular flavor of being. The qualities that we have, our love, our compassion, our generosity, our kindness, coupled with the other things that we usually love to do, right? That's what it is.
Like those children jumping up and down upstairs.
Oh, it's making the screen go like that.
Yes.
Right. So it's talents plus qualities of character. And everybody in here, I guarantee you, has their own genius, your own particular part to play in the big picture. And it manifests like this. It manifests as service, it manifests as generosity, and it manifests as working together with communities. Whether they're spiritual communities or whatever it is that makes a contribution that really makes your heart sing. That's where the bliss comes in. The bliss comes in when you are together working on something and you're seeing a difference. I was thinking about that young lawyer, environmentalist in India last week who had this vision of cleaning up that beach in Mumbai that was stacked 5.5 feet high with plastic waste and trash. And what he did to activate not only himself, but thousands of other people to take part in it and to own it and to clean it up. And I can still picture the little turtles going out to sea for the first time in 21 years, the first time that turtles could actually lay their eggs on that beach in 21 years. Those are the visions, that pull us forward, knowing that it's possible. We don't want to give up. We don't want to say, there's no way through this. We're too far along. I've heard scientists say that. We have like 12 years to turn this planet around. Let us stay in the place of vision and knowing that all things are possible in God. When we confront injustice, and we confront the human suffering that's caused by that, it can be overwhelming. Anybody run into that sometimes? Yeah, it can be overwhelming. So it's important to know how to take care of ourselves. And forgiveness is one of the first pieces, the practice of what we call radical forgiveness here, which is letting go of that idea of bypass. When we get into denial, there's a tendency. I don't know how many of you have noticed it, but there's a tendency when you see all this stuff going on the planet, and you read about it, you just want to go shopping or or whatever your thing is. Take another drink. I don't know what it is, but there's chocolate chip cookies. Okay, there's a tendency to want to deny, to avoid, and to suppress it. And we don't want to do that. And the radical forgiveness process is about release, feeling your feelings fully, looking at what the beliefs are that are getting in your way, reframing the story, letting go of your attachment to negativism and pessimism, and stepping into optimism. That's what it is. It's letting go, releasing all of that stuff that gets in the way of your creativity, because all that stuff takes energy. All of the negativity and the hopelessness, it takes up a lot of energy. Just like the gridlock in politics, it takes a lot of energy. So we want to forgive, release, let go, and then we can be centered in this present moment, and we have the energy and we are the avenues then through which divine ideas in the mind of God can pour into us, through us, as us, and out into the world. This is what is being called for. So forgiveness, that's self-care. Another kind of self-care then is realizing that the pain pushes until the vision pulls. So do you want to be pushed by pain? No. Or do you want to be pulled by a vision? So visioning is a process, and we have a class coming up, and I invite you to join us in that class, because visioning is a power. There's forgiveness, but then it's important to catch a vision, because otherwise we're still looking at what's wrong, and we want to be catching a vision of where we're going. So the great leaders in the world and the people who really accomplish things have a vision. I think of Martin Luther King. I have a dream, right? And visioning here is not visualization. It's not taking what we know, what we think we want, and putting it down on a paper, which is, it's fine. But this is a higher practice. This is a practice of the mystic consciousness, oneness consciousness, is to listen deeply, asking the questions, what is God's idea of my life? What is God's idea of my particular way of expressing my love and compassion for the planet? And then going into meditation and listening. And I guarantee if you do that, it will be revealed to you. Wholehearted action. So we have forgiveness, we have visioning, we have wholehearted action. Once you catch the vision, the action follows. I guarantee you. You get motivated. You find people to connect with. And I was just recently, I heard an interview by David Letterman of Representative John Lewis. Anybody, all of you know who John Lewis is? Yeah, right. Representative John Lewis has been a representative to the U.S. Congress from the state of Georgia since 1986. This is a man who's been in service a long time. And even before that, he was inspired by Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. And so he caught that vision. And one of his defining moments, he was involved in the civil rights movement. One of his defining moments is when he led a march across a bridge so that all of his people could register to vote. They had been blocked from being registered to vote. This was in Alabama back in the 1960s. And what happened then is that there was a violent confrontation. The police, even though they were using nonviolent principles, John and his people were walking. The police got violent. It got on national news. It changed the political atmosphere of the entire country. And by 1965, the Voter Rights Act was brought into being. It was birthed. And listen to this. I read this and it just blew my mind. After that, 4 million new voters were added to the rolls, all minorities. 4 million additional. That's wholehearted action. Put his courage, heart, compassion present in his action. And then I was reading about Alice Paul, who became active in the women's suffrage movement in the 20th century. She was disgusted with, the fact that there was no progress being made, so she went to England and she brought back a more radical approach to winning the vote. I didn't read what that was exactly, but all I know is that after that, women finally succeeded in 1920 to be voters. And then she was the one who proposed the Equal Rights Amendment that's still in process right now. But again, wholehearted action. So a powerful vision and effective action, coupled with our genius, coupled with getting together with friends of who have the same passion, will accomplish amazing, amazing things. And I'm going to leave you with a beautiful quote by Michael Beckwith that I think speaks to this so fully. When you find yourself following your vision and failure seems to be taking place, this is what you do. He says, we fall forward. That means when we fall forward and rise up with a soul on fire. Mm-hmm. And so it is.
And so it is.